Welcome back to the W Basketball Show. I am your co-host for the day, Lucas, joined this week by another co-host, Marco. I'm going to need a bit of help. Well, Marco, how are you?
Good, Lucas. How are you?
As I was saying, I'm going to need a bit of help driving this episode because I was at the infamous Pitch 2024 festival. Everything's all good on my end. I had a pretty ripper time. I actually am feeling cautiously optimistic about everything, and with the mention of a partial refund, I'm actually quite happy with how things went over the weekend. So I might not be a good reflection of everyone's experience on the weekend, but I'm definitely probably like out of 15,000, I'd be top 3,000.
Yeah. From what you were just saying off mic as well, I think the what do I want to say? I think the failure of the event has been greatly exaggerated by everyone just speculating about what was happening while everyone was there. Like, obviously, just terrible planning, terrible communication, etc., etc. But you got like 3/4 of you got half a festival, 2/3 of a festival.
Let's say half. So we lost about 5 hours on the Friday. They went from the music until midnight on the Friday, and then Saturday they went 6 p.m. till 7 a.m. and they rescheduled a few people to play who were going to play on Friday on the Saturday. And then Sunday they did through the day until 7 p.m. So they cut off so that was the biggest chunk, I would say. They cut off 8 hours, and then they cancelled the Monday. But that Saturday, that was like, I was telling you, I can't remember what the order was, but it was just as soon as the music started, it was just like,
insane.
Was it Kink, Gerd Jansen? No, Kink, Narcissus, shout out fucking Remy Picciani, great recommendation. Or Chaos in the CBD if you didn't want to go to Narcissus.
Yeah.
Gerd Jansen, X Club.
I Hate Models.
And then...
James Will RSK.
Or Clara Cuve.
Yep.
And at that point, I'd been dancing from 6 till 3. So I was just like walking around all the different stages. Clara Cuve was... I'm just like... Probably the best set.
Yeah.
I only saw maybe half an hour of it. Didn't plan on seeing her, so not like kicking myself that I missed her. But I'm hoping they release, as part of the deal, they release all the sets or something.
They have to.
Because they usually release like, 10?
Yeah.
After a festival, but after this one, they better release
you
all.
or get like a CD or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Melbourne, it was just like on Saturday morning, everyone's like, "Oh my god, Pitch has been cancelled."
Yeah.
Like, it hasn't. It definitely hasn't. Like something's going wrong, but it hasn't been cancelled. But yeah, like I'm very glad you had a good time.
Yeah,
is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because I think there are a few group chats that people were like freaking out, and I was like, I think should we have been freaking out?
Yeah.
Like, should we have?
Yeah.
Oh
no. But it was like, is Lukas going to come back and be like, that was the worst 3 days of my life?
Yeah.
Like, I knew you're never like that.
Yeah.
Like, you were, I think, who was I discussing? I was discussing this with someone. I'm like, Lukas is going to make the most of it. Like, other people might be like, wow, I really regret going. But it doesn't sound like anyone has landed in that camp.
Yeah.
Come the end of the festival.
Yeah. So on the Sunday, my campsite was all quite out of it. And then we learned that it was finishing at 7 at about 4:45, I want to say.
Wow.
And
that is very quick turnaround.
Though we hadn't left the campsite, so we didn't really go and find out. But I was like, all right, let's just go right now to the stages. And of course, it took 15 to 20 minutes to leave. We got 2 hours of music left. Just whatever you got. Let's just take that.
Yeah.
And let's just enjoy the last bit. And I just hold up after hold up. I was like, guys, what the fuck is going on?
Do you not hear the news?
Yeah, like, let's complain about this at 7. Let's just make the most of the next 2 hours, and then you can complain about it later. But yeah, I had a blast.
Great. Pitch Music and Arts Festival. Can't recommend it enough.
And the WNBL finals are here.
Yeah, wow.
The last time we had an episode on our airwaves was the finals preview. I was 2-0 in the first round. Flyers and Perth. Did you kept up with most of the semi-finals? Didn't you?
Yeah. I kept up with it. We went to game 2 of the Southside Boomers series together, which was great. Honestly, I haven't been to much live basketball, but that was a top 5 experience, let's call it.
Great atmosphere.
Yeah.
Especially like, even though all 3 games are played at the Boombox, this was the Melbourne home game.
And
so
it felt like it.
Yeah, they really brought it.
Yeah.
And it kind of always felt like Melbourne's home crowd, but the Southside home games, it felt like the fans were even louder for them because like making up for, you know, the fact that it was being played on enemy territory, so to speak.
Yeah.
Or like just fucking oh damn it.
You already dropped one.
Oh,
Remy effing Picciani.
Actually,
Yeah.
shout out. Yeah, but like come the moment, Lauren Jackson just delivers like every single time. You talked about it on an episode of the Jeff Van Gundy tribute show a couple weeks ago, but she's done it since that episode. Oh no, that was after the OQT. But at the OQT, there was a game she just kind of won. Oh, she made just huge plays in the Brazil game that led to us winning that got us the Olympic the qualification. And then game 3, she put up 38 and 11, was it?
38-11, yeah.
And then even the game against Perth, what did she have? 20 and something.
And she, I mean,
21.
We'll get more into it later, but like she opened the second half with 3 back-to-back threes. Like it was every Southside possession, like the first 3 Southside possessions of the half were just, you know, her being like, I'm just going to hit a 3-pointer here. Like, it wasn't like, you know, let's get Lauren Jackson 3-pointer. She's like, give me the ball. I'm going to shoot it and it's going to go in.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, again, we'll get more into that later, that she couldn't quite deliver on the win there. But yeah, she's just incredible.
Yeah. So should we start with Flyers Boomers or Fire Lynx?
Let's start with Fire Lynx because I think your predictions were just like spot on for not just like the result of this series, but how it played out.
Okay.
You know, I think you just talking about the momentum that the Lynx brought into like the end of the regular season. That's basically what's just powered them through the last 3 games. So yeah, I mean, what were your takeaways from that series?
Well, I would say the only thing I didn't expect, I thought it was going to be Lynx 2-1, or if it was Lynx 2-0, there would be a point in both games where it felt like the game was slipping from the Lynx. I thought that the Lynx wins would go more like game 1, where it was like squeak it out, and with a couple minutes to go, whether or not they had the lead or not, like the game was going to be, it was going to feel like it was being played on Townsville's terms. Whereas in the second game, I just never felt there was never any moment of maybe even the second half where it didn't feel like the Lynx were in full control. Like even when Townsville were making any runs in the second half, it felt like Perth was in complete control of the game. Ari McDonald just, I mean, like I don't really even know how to describe the way she played, but like she would just rip and go past anyone that was in front of her anytime Perth needed a basket or a paint touch. And yeah, her play in round 1 was like seriously ridiculous. But yeah, you said that the way it played out was like I kind of predicted the way it played out, but I didn't expect game 2 to go like that.
Yeah. I think it's such an obvious thing to say about basketball more generally, but just like the way that they play with, you know, smaller, quicker, more athletic players, like it just leaves teams who, you know, have big on the floor completely in the dust. Like when Annalie Maley rips down a board and like either puts the, you know, ball to the floor herself or like makes an outlet pass, it's like 66% chance that possession is going to end in a bucket. Like they're such a good fast break team. They're so good at getting out in transition. And yeah, like Ari McDonald, Amy Atwell, like just backing that up with like really, really good shooting as well. And yeah, like it just really lets them like, you know, put their foot on the throat of teams and like, you know, not give them any recourse to get back into the game.
Yeah. I feel like they've all been really like solid in their roles as well.
Yeah.
Emily Potter, I feel like, has really come into her own. We'll get onto the finals where, you know, it's really not the matchup for her. Like she won't get any clean looks really. But yeah, I feel like she had a few good plays when she was coming up against Akuso 1-on-1. And she just makes a lot of the opportunities that the rest of the Lynx create. And she's been huge on the glass and she's been better at curbing her fouls in the finals, which is, you know, perfect timing to start like cutting down on them. But just like, yeah, and I feel like the absence of Ari McDonald really, like the Lynx really slipped from that. But it made way for Amy Atwell to just become like one of the most deadly 3-point shooters. like the gap between her and whoever's the second best shooter in the league is like monumental. And she's just become so comfortable at shooting off the dribble with no space, like super quick release. And every time, like it seems like a rush shot for anyone else, but she's able to get into her form, and like you know, in their finals game against Southside, 9 of 14 from 3, just crazy. But then even Mila Goodchild being just a pest defensively, and then every time she puts up a 3, it feels like a good shot. Ari McDonald we've touched on. Ali Maley just being like a Swiss Army knife. And then I think Ryan Petrick's done a really good job of empowering the bench, especially Steph Gorman, Alex Chibatoni, and Mackenzie Clinch-Hoycard. So yeah, I just think that they're loving their running. They're loving to run. They're loving to make other teams tired and just dictate the pace of the game. And they have the depth, and I think they have the right coach to bring some sort of like fearlessness to his players.
Yeah.
I think they've got all the right tools for a team that wants to play fast and fearless.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, like you said, everyone's a team player. Like no one's really like, going it alone. Or, I mean, you can imagine, like, that's how Emily Maley plays across the board, but, like, she's the star and the captain and blah, 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 blah. But, yeah, you're right. She just defends hard, like, passes, rebounds, sprints up and down the court, and there's no, there's just no ego in it at all. Yeah.
Yeah. And when she can be such a deadly rebounder against teams that are bigger than her and players that are bigger than her, it's just... like, she takes away that strength, and then just innately, with being a smaller and faster player, she and the rest of the team have this other set of strengths in their speed, which they've been making the most of. And it's just like, it's so discouraging to her the league's opposition when she can and like repeatedly does out rebound so many bigger players.
Yeah.
Southside Melbourne, the derby, the derby finals edition.
Finals derby.
I went to all 3 games. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
My memory's a bit cloudy.
Yeah, I think you did.
I definitely did.
Or did you? You did.
I'm glad we can. No.
You didn't go to game 3, did you?
No, I didn't go to game 1.
Oh, okay.
I missed the first game.
Yeah.
A slight Southside win. I remember watching this, but I don't exactly remember the way the game went. But we both went to game 2, and that was quite a landslide actually in the end for Melbourne. And yeah, I kind of feel like these games were reflective of the story of Melbourne throughout the season, where they didn't make the most of their opportunities in game X, and then it led to a loss, and then it's like, oh, we need to paper up that, but it's like you never really did, and like it's not like you had so many chances to make up for your missed opportunities or whatever the case may be, but you never really did. I think, and then from game 2 onwards, Sarah Blitzarves was unavailable. Game 1, she came off the bench, But yeah. What were your takeaways from this series more generally?
Yeah. Definitely, like, Southside were the team with a game plan. They were the team that, I guess had much earlier in the season, maybe even before the season, like, knew how they were going to play. And, like, it was very clear from day dot that, like, what sort of team they were going to be. The game that Melbourne won, I feel like it was a landslide, but it felt like they only won it just out of like pure chaos, like by creating this kind of storm to interrupt how Southside were playing, and like some awesome performances in that game. Like Naz Hillman was just unbelievable. 15 of 15 for free throws. Like, I wonder what the record is. But yeah, it was almost like that was even though it was a 21-point win, it was like a vibes-based win where, like, Jordan Canada didn't get hot until late, and then, like, for practically the first time this season, like, after she hit a tough bucket, she, like, put her arms up at the crowd and got, like, everyone on their feet, and it was like, wow, this is great. Like, this is, this is what should have been happening all season. It's like you getting the fans excited about the game. And yeah, I think that was really the only story of the game. Was them just creating this absolute chaos and tension. And just, The other thing was like, in that game, I think there was a point where outside of Southside's three bigs, LJ, Mercedes Russell, and Ernst, like there were 6 points or something.
Yeah.
I think Manny Rocci finished with a little bit more, but like, yeah, there was one point where no one had scored more than like 1 or 2 buckets outside of the bigs, and it was like, oh, it's so obvious. Like, it's such a simple game plan. It's like, all right, well, Mercedes Russell and Lauren Jackson are going to get theirs. We'll just let that happen, and we'll just completely strangle them on the perimeter. But yeah, like that's not really a sustainable game plan over a 3-game series.
Yeah, I think it was at halftime, there were only 6 points that weren't by LJ, any of the 3 bigs.
Yeah.
And then the game was, all but over kind of at the start of the fourth quarter. So yeah, a lot of garbage time minutes going around then. I'm just like flicking through all the box scores now, and LJ has just been so consistent. And this is another thing I was thinking while watching Southside today. They've just got the pedigree on this team is crazy. Yeah. Like Leilani Mitchell, like you forget about like Mercedes Russell, LJ. Probably, they're the 2 biggest names. Yeah. Nadia Poch going into the WNBA next season. Jasmine Dickey, imports always have that little bit extra to them. Maddie Rocci is on the Opals squad, and then you kind of get to Leilani Mitchell as a name, and she's been like a stalwart of Australian basketball over the past however many years. Love mentioning it, but 2-time WNBA most improved player. Beck Cole's a massive figure in Australian basketball as well. The pedigree is awesome. They got these faces, they got these personalities. But I guess that's kind of a side point and a side story. Then game 3. Was when LJ dropped 38 and 11. Seriously crazy to watch in person. Just looked so comfortable. I think it was I think she had 20 at half and 30 at the end of the third, and she might have had 12 in the first quarter, but it was pretty much just like steady flow of around 10 points every quarter to deliver the win. And they just did such a great job of finding her, and great supporting points around her in game 3, as you said, which was probably which was kind of an oversight in game 2. Like, you can't just win with one offensive strategy. But yeah, were you expecting Southside Perth in the finals?
I thought that Townsville would have a bit more. I don't know, like, you just kind of trust them. They've won X out of X games over the past 2 seasons. That when it came to a matchup against a team that, like, as we've said, didn't find their form until later in the season and like squeaked into the finals. Like, you got to win that first game genuinely especially in Townsville, which has been a fortress for them. And a Perth team has to fly to Townsville and play the first game of the WNBL finals up there. But I didn't think the Boomers were going to beat Southside. Like you said, just too much pedigree, too much of a unit, and there was just no. You're right. There was no game this season where it's like, the Melbourne Boomers are here. These are title favorites or title hopefuls. It was just like, they're a good team, but they're not great. Yeah,
there was more to trust in what Southside did.
The NBA moves so quickly these days, it's hard to keep up. Shams and Woj are breaking stories left and right, but the Quick Time Out is right there with them to keep you informed on the latest NBA news. Stop in and let us break it down as it happens. Find the Quick Time Out on the Deep 2 Podcast Network.
Now on to the WNBL finals. First game in the books, 101-79 win for Perth against Southside at the Boombox yet again. All right, just initial takeaways on this one as well, because I've got a question I have for you a little later. Okay. But what did you think watching this game?
Well, I think the obvious story of the game, and anyone's going to tell you this, is just the Lynx shooting the absolute crap out of the ball, especially in the first half. Amy Atwell had 6 in the first half. She finished 9 of 14 overall. And by halftime, it was like, all right, well, they've just scored so much more And it was one of those classic situations where it's like, all right, Lynx are shooting hot. Southside are going to try and get one of their own 3-point shots up. It doesn't go in. It goes up the other end. It goes in for the Lynx. It's just going in for one team and not going in for the other. But I think the more interesting thing was just the really incredible job that the Lynx did denying Mercedes Russell and Lauren Jackson the ball early in the game. They were just, there were no easy post entries for Southside. Eventually the guards were trying to go over the top, and then it would just cause a turnover and a fast break up the other end, which is how we discussed. That's just the Lynx's bread and butter. I know Mercedes Russell finished with 12 and 8, but it didn't feel like it watching it. It felt like she barely got a shot up all game. They really took her out of the game. You can't take Lauren Jackson out of the game. She's gonna find a way to get back in, and she did in the second half with that outside shot. But if you can take sort of stopping those two bigs from really getting hot and really getting going, was so crucial. And yeah, you mentioned it earlier, but Emily Potter was just incredible. Just had absolutely no regard for her getting anything on offense.
Genuinely,
she just, I think. What? Sorry, let me just look at the box score quickly. Right here. Because
1 point.
1 point. Yeah.
The best 1 point game of all time.
She finished 0-5 from the field. One of those was a full half court 3-point heave. A classic why not moment. But yeah, just obviously no regard for getting going on the other end. Obviously had been told just don't worry about your shot. Your job is just to harass Mercedes Russell and Lauren Jackson, and such an incredible job to finish. 1.10 rebounds is, and in a 22-point win, there's something special about that.
Yeah. Your job is to stop, or be the defensive anchor of a D that's trying to stop Lauren Jackson, Mercedes Russell, and then even Carly Ernst coming off the bench brings a lot of offense. Yeah. And then you're the Mackenzie Clinch-Hoycard can kind of play on the perimeter. So you're kind of the post presence on this team offensively. So then you're also coming up against those three players. Yeah. Also, fact check. You said 6 first half 3-pointers for Amy Atwell. It was actually 7.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
My mistake. I think I was writing these notes as I was watching the game.
She snuck another couple in. And you also said that Perth weren't allowing Southside to have any easy post entries. I think I trust Cheryl Chambers as a coach enough to kind of create situations in game 2 where it looks like hard post entries, but I feel like they'll be planned hard post entries, or what looks like difficult post entries, because there are a few times in this game where LJ and Mercedes Russell, actually more Mercedes Russell, but there was just a few times where Southside did have the height advantage and didn't really make the most of it. And I think they're going to look at the game and be like, oh, so they really have no chance of stopping us if we get the ball in there. And I feel like they'll attack that more in game 2. Perth just across the board so good. I was trying to make the case that Annalie Maley had, maybe the most important game, because not only was she getting the ball moving and rebounding and defending someone that was always bigger than her and hitting 3-pointers of her own. Yeah. She was doing it all, but you just can't go past Amy Atwell's.
It's crazy.
She just kept extending the lead. Anytime, not even anytime they needed it, she just kept extending the lead. Crazy first half, got them such a cushion. It was just so far gone at the end of the third quarter, and she'd done all of her work on the scoreboard. But it was also Alex Chibatoni pitches in with 12 of her own points. I don't think that's something that that Perth can count on happening again, but that's huge, and her game is more predicated on being just an annoying defender and making things work offensively. And yeah, Steph Gorman hitting 3 threes, 2 threes is a good game coming off the bench for her. Yeah. So, it's just, I think a lot of things went right for Perth as well. 22 of 38 from 3 as a team is 57%, which is just, berserk.
Both teams shot better from 3 than they did from 2.
Yeah. And I did want to talk about, the use of zone from both teams. But the question I said before, I had a question for you. And the question I want to ask is, do you feel like this win from Perth was similar to Melbourne's Game 2 win against Southside in round 1? And do you feel like Southside will be able to address those issues and get a win in Game 2 against Perth?
I see the similarities, but I think it was much more purposeful. It was much more executed.
That's true.
I think their defensive scheme was was much more clear than what Melbourne were trying to do in Game 2. And then, they got hot from 3, but the reason they got hot from 3 was because they had a couple open shots early in the first quarter and they just hit them. And then
True.
when the shots became less open, it didn't matter because everyone was the entire team was just in this amazing rhythm. And I think that was almost Southside's biggest mistake was there were just a couple of moments where they're all right, well, we'll let him settle for the 3-pointer. And then when it goes in, the game just slips away from you. Because Amy Atwell's first 3 threes were wide open and you can't leave Amy Atwell open from 3.
Yeah.
And then every single other one was heavily contested.
Yeah.
It's in terms of Game 2, it's funny because I think Perth had a perfect game, both in execution and in I don't want to say luck, but there is that element of basketball that is the percentages are better for you this game than they are in other games. But I think the roadmap for Southside to win Game 2 is super clear. It shouldn't be too difficult for them to win. I was gonna say what you said before, that they're just gonna find ways to get LJ and Mercedes those post touches. There's just no way that it doesn't happen in Game 2. And then they're just gonna smother the perimeter. They're just gonna not let them get 3-pointers up, because I think as a team they finished with 8 blocks. So anything going in the paint was not going for Perth. So if they're just much more purposeful about what shots they allow Perth to do, and I think they're a well-coached, well-drilled enough team to do that, then the road to victory doesn't seem that difficult.
Yeah, great point. The block count was 8-1, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
I think the biggest momentum, the 2 biggest momentum plays in this game, in Game 1, were Steph Gorman hit a 3 at the end of the first quarter that was just a bank 3, and I feel like it had been, it was just such a gut punch because everything was going well for Perth. So then to even have that lucky 3 go in is just such a, it's such a deflating thing for any basketball team, in this case Southside. And then at the end of the first half, I'm pretty sure they left Annalie Maley open on the right corner, wide open for a 3. And that was the one where it was you did that one to yourselves.
Yeah.
And then that was that deflated the game quite a bit. And Perth still had to do some work to put away the game in the second half, but it was kind of done at the end of the first half. Really, in hindsight, I'm sure at the time they were feeling there was a feeling that Southside would have felt like they could win it and Perth would have felt like they could still lose the game. But, watching back, it did feel like it was game over at halftime.
Yeah.
Another huge win out of this game for Perth is that Erin McDonald barely had to take it out of first gear.
Yeah.
And, she showed in the 2 games against Townsville that she can, she showed all season that she can be the biggest reason a team wins a game. And she'll be running on a full tank of gas in Game 2. So I spoke about zone earlier. I touched on it. I feel like Southside really didn't attack any zones with much purpose. I feel like Beck Cole made a few really good passes, but I feel like Maddie Rocci, whether it was game plan or personal decisions, I feel like there were a few times she really could have just picked that zone apart with a killer pass that would have done some deflating of their own, to deflate Perth themselves, because she's probably the best passer in the league.
Yeah.
So there were a few plays like that, and then on the flip side, whenever Southside would run a zone, I felt like Perth got into the middle of the zone like 4 seconds in.
Yeah.
Like every single time they'd find a way to pass it into a big or like pass it around, get some movement, and then get the ball onto the free throw line and then let that player make the next decision. So it's just interesting to see those two things as well, because not only were Perth running the game, running the tempo, and in control of most of the things, but when it did become a zone versus zone game, they even won that as well. So it was just across the board win.
That is really interesting, because I feel like early in the first half, like there was way too much like, all right, but like from Southside, offensively we're like a low post dominant team, so like let's do that. And then in that, at the beginning of the second half, like when Lauren Jackson hit a bunch of those threes, like a whole bunch of them came off touches from Mercedes Russell at the free throw line. Like, you know, those back to the basket, like, you know, Lauren Jackson doesn't have to do much to get open when the big, you know, is coming out to meet her on the perimeter in those situations. So yeah, that's an excellent point, Lucas.
Thanks, bro.
That's about as far as I can take it.
I've watched basketball for far too long. Okay, well, heading into game 2, who would you pick? Who would you pick to win game 2?
I mean, it's really hard to not see Southside winning, because they have to.
Yeah.
And like, you know, this team has so much. This team's so good at bouncing back for starters, and they have so much will. And Lauren Jackson is there.
Yeah.
It seems,
in form as well.
Yeah. It seems impossible for them to not win this next game. And also we've sort of described the ways that, you know, we think that they can pick apart Perth's game plan from game 1. But like, I just wouldn't be surprised. Like, the Lynx are just on this incredible hot run at the moment. Like, and there just wasn't as reliable a way for Southside to get back into this game as there usually is for them. Like, they again, at the beginning of that second half, you're like, okay, a little run's cooking here. Like, that's 9 straight points from Lauren Jackson. And then by the time Cheryl Chambers called the first time out of the quarter, like, they were down more than they were at halftime. Like,
true.
The Lynx had managed to extend their lead. So, like, I will pick Southside for game 2, but it's going to be really hard.
Yeah. I think, like, closing out any team and like finishing a series would be hard enough. Doing it against Southside would be, you know, that much harder. And even though I feel like Erin McDonald has a full game where she can just drop 34 points. I feel like she has that in her. There's just that, you know, I just can't not pick Southside. You know, like there's too many, as much logic as I want to use or however I want to rationalize it. I just can't not pick them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick Southside for that reason. Yeah. Do you reckon there's a world in which one of Lauren Jackson or Mercedes Russell doesn't start and comes off the bench? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Seriously, it would be a crazy thing to do.
And like they go with a smaller player.
Yeah, go with Poch at the 4 or something. Because she matches up perfectly with Annalise.
Yeah, and you know, like she hasn't really played that much during like the finals at all. Like she basically didn't play in game 3, did she? She fouled herself out of game 2 super early. Like,
true.
Yeah.
Great point.
And then there's 2 arguments to that. It's like, well, she found herself out early out of game 2. She hasn't had this opportunity yet. And then there's like, well, she found herself early out of game 2. So like, are we going to trust her in a do or die situation?
Yeah.
But I like the look a lot. I like that look a lot more. And that was like the feeling in this game. It was like they're different players, but like, LJ and Mercedes Russell, like, yeah, they're low post players.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're giving them the same looks, and for a team sort of as dynamic as Perth, like, yeah, I think, you know, if I was Cheryl Chambers, I'd do it.
Good consideration.
Yeah.
Okay, you had a couple of pieces of news as well that you wanted to touch on that are breaking over the weekend, which I haven't had a chance to look at.
Oh, yeah. Let's go through it. So the first piece of news, and I think this is the first time I've done an accreditation on this podcast as well, comes from John Pierrick of the Sydney Morning Herald. It was actually an interview before... it must have been before game 1. Lauren Jackson, the quote here, has revealed she will seriously consider emerging from retirement to play at the Paris Olympics, provided Basketball Australia delivers financial and practical support to allow her to travel with her 2 young children. So yeah, I think her kids are 9 and 7, and she's a single mum, so like she's got a lot of, responsibilities there. I think her parents in Albury look after them a lot, but like she basically in the interview just talks about like how excruciating it's been for her, during the season being apart from them, like when she went to Brazil for the OQT, she was like crying every night. And yeah, so the other quote from this article is, Basketball Australia's collective bargaining agreement covers financial help for international players with children aged 5 and under, but a BA spokeswoman said the governing body was in negotiations with Jackson. So like, I mean, it seems like they are going to make, I don't want to call it an exception, but concessions for her so they can have her in Paris. I mean, what do you make of this, Lucas?
As they should.
Yeah.
I don't really see that. What's the discussion, man? Like, if we really want to have a chance to end up on the podium, she is currently in fine form. She's really swinging the headlines. Actually, first side note, she's really swinging the headlines. This Miss Jackson. But yeah, absolutely, they should support. I'm sure it wouldn't take that many resources to support her in this way, and having her there, the effect of that is huge for the rest of the team. Like, seriously, what Australian basketball doesn't speak highly of Lauren Jackson, and she just raises the level of the team. It was evident in Brazil that she, her calm was just vibrated through the team, and just her being on the court allowed everyone else to just like take a breath in and just see the game more clearly. And the effects she has, for the rest of the team are huge. She might not have the physical capabilities to like run out an international game as a starter, but she's showed that she doesn't really need it. Like, she can just play 15 minutes or not play at all, So I think the value of her being on the team is just like exponential. And beyond that, like, support an international, like, it's the Olympics. It happens once every 4 years. You're supporting her for a month. It's Lauren fucking Jackson.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what? Look, you went through everything she did over her career. Why? There should be no article. It should just be like, oh, and by the way, Lauren Jackson's kids are getting childcare, and it's being supported, and then everyone goes, oh, no shit.
Yeah, if she's a living legend of Australian basketball, which she is, like, treat her like that. I mean, it makes that like sort of shock retirement, quote unquote, after Brazil, like, it puts it in more context. I think she's just at the end of her tether. Like, and it does sound like it was a surprise to the Opals as well. From this latest article, that she was just like fed up with the situation. More broadly, like, it seems ridiculous that like it seems ridiculous that this is the arrangement at the moment, that you only get support for children aged 5 and under. Like, just generally, Lauren Jackson aside, like, we're going to make concessions for her because, again, she's the greatest Australian basketballer of all time. But the fact that, like, it's just another barrier to women's sport, that they're like, oh, well, you, the gender that traditionally takes on more of like the parental responsibility, who already probably have to spend so much time away from your family because you most likely can't just play in one league because you don't get paid enough to like support them just from doing one season in one country. Like, we're only going to give you like this much. Like, children need looking after for a little bit after they're 5 years old. And all I could think about as well, I know this is kind of like this is a bit of a jump, but like, during the NBA bubble, when you would see so many like wives and partners of NBA players like courtside with their kids, obviously being put up by like the teams in the like in the hotels in the bubble, which is great. Like, that's fantastic. But it was just like this reflection of, it's like, this is how much childcare falls on women more generally. That like that when you're talking about professional women basketballs, this is like a discussion you need to have.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like, it's just so illustrative of the gap more generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking great point, Marco. So well put. It's like so eloquent. Ditto. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Yeah. And also you had another piece of news about Caitlin Clark. I feel like things just haven't lined up for me and Caitlin Clark. I feel like I've genuinely missed everything she's done. Like, I've just lined it up so imperfectly that I miss everything she does. But what's up with Caitlin Clark this time?
the good news about Caitlin Clark, Lucas, is that she does something amazing pretty much every week these days. I'm actually sneak preview. I'm just started work on an article about her for the Deep 2 NBA podcast, and just not just listing her achievements, but like listing the chronology of them is crazy. It's like there should be an ESPN article about her every day about some new record she's broken, some new achievement she's made. She's the hottest college prospect since God knows who, what, when. Caitlin Clark, her Iowa Hawkeyes beat Nebraska 94-89 in OT in the Big Ten tournament final. That's her third consecutive victory in her conference championship. Again, like, they were down 8 with less than 3 minutes left in regulation, and she just pulled a miracle out of her bag to take them to OT and then win it there. She finished with 34 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds, 3 steals in a championship game. And I think she's pretty much, barring like the worst March Madness performance by like a star college player ever, she's pretty much guaranteed to clinch her third NCAA scoring and her third NCAA assist title in the next few weeks as well.
Yeah.
Just in the semi-final of this series, she overtook Steph Curry for most threes scored in a single NCAA season. She's got 168 so far. I think Iowa are pretty... I don't know how NCAA seeding works, but they're pretty much favorites to enter the tournament as the number 1 seed.
Okay.
So... I don't really know what else to say here. Like, she's just like racking up incredible performance, incredible achievement after achievement. And if you're gonna pick a time to start watching college sports, it should probably be now, when she's gonna be going after the last jewel in her crown, which she doesn't have, which is an NCAA championship, like a March Madness championship.
And I think you said you were gonna get into the March Madness this year. So like, how many more records is she gonna break? You know, she still has a bit of time still. Before she heads into the WNBA, but she still has time to break more and more records. I think I'll probably follow along now as well. I've just missed too much, but it is crazy. Like the names she's passing, and like all those records are now her name. And then it's like, oh, who's second? Steph Curry. Pete Maravich.
Pete Maravich.
Pete Maravich. Who are you going to say? John Stockton.
Sorry. Wrong pass first card.
So, far out, man. Caitlin Clark. Keep on keeping on. I'm excited to see how it translates to the WNBA, because I think it will. And it'll be interesting to see how she goes with... Do you reckon she'll be the first pick?
They can't be. I think there was discussion about this like 6 months ago. Guys, I can't. Who's the number 2 pick? It's a very good number 2 pick as well.
Is it Paige Beckers or is she third?
It might be. Paige.
Oh no, it's not. Is it Caitlin Cooper? Damn it.
That would be crazy. 2 Caitlins. It is. Oh, this is
Brink. Cameron Brink.
That's it. Yeah, nice.
Who's Caitlin Cooper? An Aussie soccer player. Cool.
Great work there, Lucas.
Anyhow, Cameron Brink.
That was a bit of a car crash at the end of a very well researched episode by both of us. It'll be a lot of fun watching her in this tournament, and like I think she should be the most hyped college player like man or woman since LeBron James practically.
Yeah, who didn't even play college.
Like, draft prospect.
Prospect, yeah.
I guess Victor Wembanyama was pretty hyped just this last year, actually.
Yeah, genuinely, yeah.
But it's the thing that with the women players, like, you get to see them perform, like, at a really high level for 4 years before they go into the WNBA, which, like, you don't. Yeah, like, you got one good season out of Zion at Duke, and you're like, wow, he's awesome. But like, because of his, like, build and his athleticism and his skills, like, we think he's going to be a really good player. With Caitlin Clark, it's because she's done absolutely everything already.
Yeah.
Like, as well as, her play and her talent, it's the accolades. Like, like, when Indiana draft her first number all, not if, but when, it's because she's, like, the most awarded women's basketball college player ever.
Yeah. She's really earned it. Yeah, it's crazy. She's earned the number one pick. Yeah. All right. Well, that's that on that. Unless you have any last little tidbits to add to this episode of the W.
Nothing from me, Lucas.
No. Should we go and get some pizza?
That sounds good.
See you, bro.